Pyramid schemes rely solely on recruiting members in order to make money. The scheme perpetrator uses misleading marketing strategies by boasting very high return and advertising it as a quick and easy way to make money. Here's the initial recruiter at the top of the structure, which we'll call Level 1. And here are two new members who both have to pay the recruiter to get in. Let's say $100 each. This creates a second level within the organization. But in order for these members to make a profit, or at least to break even, they have to recruit new members to invest, which...
Hi everyone, welcome back to the Unwellness Community Podcast. I'm so grateful that you're listening to this. Please make sure that you're subscribed if you're watching on YouTube, and you are following if you are listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. So this week it's a two-part, just like last episode was. It was a two-part too. I want to make sure that it's a two-part so that I get as much information out about this as possible. So I'm going to be talking about how pyramid schemes, or rather yoga teacher trainings, are very similar to pyramid schemes. If not, some I think actually are. And what got me thinking was I was watching a friend of mine has a YouTube channel, and he was talking about a famous Real Housewife whose husband is like the leader of the pyramid scheme. And I listened to a lot of what he had to say about how pyramid schemes work and so forth, and I was like, whoa, this sounds like how a lot of yoga teacher trainings run their trainings. So when he said that, I automatically was reminded of when I completed mine in 2016, one of my teacher trainings in 2016. I won't say who with, but if you know me, you know who it is. And the man who was instructing the yoga teacher training at that time said that he runs his studio based off of teacher training money. So he was like, basically, if I just do 2 a year, it pays for my rent. And I thought to myself, how is that legal? Is it legal? Because if you're running a teacher training, aren't you expecting these people to be teachers? And if so, what's the purpose? Why is that the main source of income? So I've been talking amongst many other yoga teachers, former yoga teachers, because I'm no longer in the yoga community as it is right now, because I feel like it's gotten too dangerous and toxic for my well-being. But I was talking to former yoga teachers, and a lot of them were talking about how many of the people that they did their trainings with, other people that they did it with have not been teaching. And then I thought about mine. My initial one that I did in New York, not necessarily Brooklyn, but that's where I used to practice. It was all over the city. But I thought about it, and this is a rough number because this was 8 years ago. And I remembered that in my class, I would say about half graduated. We started with around 36 people, and half ended up graduating. Now, if you think about like a non-refundable deposit, that's already 36 times 500. And let me calculate that really, really quickly. So that's already 18,000. So that's quick money that the studios are getting. And if you think about that, I mean, that was 8 years ago. And the rent was a lot less. So I'm sure that this would have covered about 3 to 4 months of their rent. And that's just from one teacher training. So it's a lot of money. So there's a lot of money to be made. And I'm really excited to break this down because I think that it is imperative. First, I want to start with the definition of a pyramid scheme. So this is from Merriam-Webster. And it says the definition of a pyramid scheme: a usually illegal operation in which participants pay to join and profit mainly from payments made by subsequent participants. Examples of a pyramid scheme in a sentence: among other campaigns, Ackman took in investor Carl Icahn over health supplement maker Herbalife shorting its stock, calling the business a pyramid scheme. Another example: Lowenstein is nonplussed when asked what happens to Spatial's benefits if NFTs turn out to be a pyramid scheme. So these examples just highlight the shady aspect of what a pyramid scheme is. Now, not all pyramid schemes are illegal, and not all of them will leave you with no money. In fact, some people do really well in it. Actually, I was not necessarily a part of, but I was briefly in what I believe to be a pyramid scheme. It was Arbin, and this was in 2016, I believe. Yes, 2016. And I was approached at a yoga studio by someone who wanted me to join Arbin, and I had to pay money. I kind of saw for what it was in the beginning, and I decided to leave after about 2-3 months when I saw that it was very fake. It seemed very fake. There was a lot of lies. I could tell when I asked questions, there weren't real answers. And if Arbin has worked for you, I think that's perfect. Like I said, pyramid schemes, not all of them are illegal. But if you watch documentaries like the one about LuLaRoe and so forth, people paying thousands and thousands of dollars and not seeing a return, they're stuck with tons of clothes, they're stuck with things that they'll never use. That is when it becomes an illegal operation. So I want to just touch on this, the similarities between a yoga teacher training and a pyramid scheme, because I think there are more than we realize, and I would really love it if we could get the education board to do something about how many yoga teacher trainings yoga studios are able to do, because I believe that a lot of money is being wasted by yoga studios getting people to take their teacher trainings so that they can pay their rent, as opposed to actually giving them a product that they have paid for.
Out of control. We need to get this into control. I know that Yoga Alliance is looking into having better standards and enforcing them more for teacher trainings, but there are too many yoga teacher trainings happening. Not everyone who loves yoga needs to be a yoga teacher. Run their business based on getting people to participate in their expensive yoga teacher training. That is not how you should identify yoga teachers.
So to elaborate on the conversation that we had during our teacher training, when one of the yoga studio owners confessed to all of us that he just had to run 2 teacher trainings a year in order to be able to pay his rent. So I thought that to be kind of like cringy that he was admitting that to us. But I'm also about honesty, because I'm kind of grateful that he did, because I was able to see the kind of game that these yoga studios are running. Now, one example of it is Core Power. Core Power has been known to be run, in my opinion, a very fraudulent way of running a yoga studio. And I used to work at a yoga studio in Los Angeles that was very similar to Core Power. In fact, I think that the owner kind of modeled his business model on Core Power. And the owner of the yoga studio that I taught at, he seemed very greedy. He seemed very money hungry, and I think that's a common denominator in a lot of these yoga studios that run a ton of yoga teacher trainings and just pump them out and get other people to recruit it. So I will tell you the different kind of strategies later. I'll tell you the different kind of strategies that they use that I think are very, very similar to a pyramid scheme, because I've worked front desk, I've been a yoga teacher, and I've seen the game. In fact, I was a part of the game. Not necessarily in the way that they wanted us to, because I've seen through it from day one. But I've seen how we got bonuses and they'd recruit people very similar to a pyramid scheme. So once I discovered that a lot of yoga studios can't afford to keep their businesses open, and that's a common thread in pyramid schemes, that what a business is selling doesn't make enough money for that business to stay open. Now, if you think about a lot of yoga studios, most of them, they have trouble making sure that their bills are paid just from yoga students. So from members, from people who pay monthly memberships, from people who pay classes. The one yoga studio that I taught at in Los Angeles had 5 yoga studios when I was teaching at that time in different areas. And they would do at least 3 yoga teacher trainings a year at each studio. So that's 15 a year. 15 of those a year. And they would charge about $3,000 is basically $45,000. So that is from all of them 3 times a year. Wait, let me see if that makes sense. 15, yes. Okay, yes. So that is quite a substantial amount of money. And if you think about how many yoga teachers would end up teaching, I personally did not see that many. I would see kind of behind the scenes that after they auditioned, they didn't get back in, and then they would pay for mentorship, then they'd pay for this, then they'd pay for that. So it didn't just stop at the teacher training. There were other amounts of money to it as well. So this gives me complete pyramid scheme vibes, especially through the recruiting process.